also. Don't Say Okay Kanmani is a ground-up initiative established in 2020 that aims to feature stories of women and discuss pertinent issues that impact our community.
Tell you the translation of it. Where women are honored, there the lords and goddesses are teased. Where the women are not respected, there the rituals and actions performed do not give rise to their results. So that itself should tell you that women are highly regarded, elevated, and respected in the Hindu culture. Gender equality and mutual respect is a core principle of Hindu scriptural teachings and practices. Today, there may be a growing and living disconnect between scriptural teachings and human cultivated social norms, but some of these human cultivated social norms, or most, are very specific to a family tradition or a community tradition.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, when we speak about revering women as Mahalakshmi, we speak of recognizing the beautiful virtues that women inherently possess and inherently have. And it actually serves as an instruction for men to firstly follow, such that when we are able to support our women, I won't even say empower here, because already in the previous session I've said that empower means I come from a position that I am higher and women are lower and I'm bringing them up. So I would say for men, it really is a position wherein we support our women and live and work with them in a beautiful union, in a beautiful way, such that both of us collectively can come together to meaningfully contribute for the welfare of society. Now, it really is because women are the root of the household and they are the root of society. Through them, children are born, or individuals are inspired to respect women and go forth. And he's supposed to respect and honor her that way throughout life. It's not just on wedding one day we are happy and then you ignore later on. The power, the responsibility that women have in ensuring not only the sustenance of their own households, but also creating the future of a nation, creating the future of a society in which everyone meaningfully works to be the best that they can be and contribute meaningfully to society. Yeah.
So a question that I have is, I think with a woman empowerment and the waves of feminism, in today's world, do you think marriage is a mandatory life stage of a Hindu? Because more women are educated and they feel empowered to lead a life independently, be it financially, emotionally, and all. So therefore, many women choose to remain single. So do the scriptures actually support this stance?
There's a lot of examples, like for example, even some of the Bharatanatyam teachers that I know, they are single women who are putting in all of this energy also in like the art that they are performing. And there's a lot of example of single men and women who prefer to remain single and they spend that energy on pursuing things like that. So it is encouraged that, like, you're encouraged to either marry or be single if you want to, but just to focus that energy in balancing your life, and that it is beneficial for you at the end of the day.
So is it safe to say that marriage is actually ultimately still a choice of a woman, regardless of what scripture says?
Yeah, definitely.
Marriage as well. So there are actually a lot of strong views on the concept of dowry, as many of us would have already known. So is this actually a religious requirement, like the need for dowry, or how did this practice actually come about and how has it evolved? Is the dowry concept still relevant today with all the women empowerment and the modern world? So
now, what happened over time, unfortunately, the deviation between religious and scriptural practices versus what started to become exploited by communities and so, is that for the marriage to happen, they started to use this as an opportunity to ask for more gifts. Because brides' fathers and all that at that point of time, they would be a bit more limited and they had to get their daughter married. It was a societal pressure as well. So then it goes on into the system where fathers would pay whatever cost, whatever thing was necessary. Now, scripturally speaking, this is very bad, because what it does is it lowers and reduces the quality of a marriage that's done. Now, one problem is when you start bringing dowry in or any kind of exchange of gift for the woman, it brings it down at least 3 to 4 levels. So then it becomes a very medium to tribalistic kind of level of or marriage that happens. And that becomes the detriment of society because there are different qualities associated with different types of marriages.
My next question would be that women view their chosen husband as their partner, best friend, or life companion. Is there a need to worship your husband? Because there are actually festivals such as the Tej where women revere their husbands. So why are there such festivals where women where husbands worship their wife or wife worship their husband? Or what is the underlying philosophy behind these practices in today's world?
Okay, actually, Sanatan Dharma's perspective, which differs from the Western perspective of feminism that we are accustomed to today. Sanatan Dharma's perspective is that men and women, when they come together in marriage, they are two bodies uniting as one soul, and through that beautiful relationship, they are supposed to seek each other's consent, work with each other to create the best possible value. In that sense, the word worship is used. Ultimately, that was the system that was supposed to be created. Both respect each other, both have a happy life together, they serve their families, serve their elderly parents, and so learn the cultural traditions, heritage, and so share it with their kids and spread it as well, and then work towards the betterment of society. So were there that women should respect their husbands and all that. Equally, there were many different rules for men to follow with regards to respecting women, and there were also clear conditions written for women where they could actually reject their husbands if they were bad. So not exactly like the concept of divorce. So again, divorce is a very Western thing. In Sanatan Dharma, such concepts were not exactly available, but there were some rules, some conditions that were laid out that could lead to like women maybe taking on a second marriage or women leaving their husbands. So again, like as Pavitra shared earlier as well, maybe a spiritually qualified man, or basically a qualified man alone, should be worthy or have the authority to take on a wife. If he's leaving her alone, if he's not doing anything, if he has deviated from his path completely or so, then there is some condition for the woman to reject that man. And so it's not always worship so blindly to the extent where nothing can happen. That worship blindly, that push for that pressure for women to stay in like any kind of abusive relationships and all that, again, was a societal thing that came about. But we have to be very clear about what is within the scriptures, what is coming from the religious standpoint versus what was conditioned or deviated or pushed unnecessarily by society. Thank you.
Now I think we can move on to our next question. Our next question is, do the scriptures impose restrictions on the appearance and conduct of a married woman, such as wearing tali, meti, not having male friends? So all these restrictions, are they based off the scriptures?
But we have to understand that actually times are changing. Unlike in the past, for instance, when women were not many women had the privilege of to be educated, and so a lot of the times they were financially dependent on the male relatives who would be able to probably like provide them because they were working and so on as well. So this financial dependence, or that we had in the past, was basically more because of the idea that a woman shouldn't be left alone if let's say she's widowed, right? I mean, it was basically from the idea that the son or the daughter should be looking after the mother. I mean, it's from a dharmic perspective or duties perspective, for instance. But to this context, we are mainly, women are mainly educated. We are able to, most of us actually have a full-time job, or rather a part-time job. So to a large extent, we are able to look after ourselves. Scientifically, the meti that is worn by women actually helps in keeping the uterus healthy, because typically it actually regulates to ensure that there's a constant blood flow to the uterus. So when a woman is particularly pregnant, for instance, or or even like to just get her menstruation, for instance, keep her healthy. And I thought I'll very quickly share about the not having male friends, for instance, right? I think it's a very it's probably coming from a very societal perspective or so on, because there isn't any traditional Hindu scriptures that actually do have that restriction. So if you look at the Mahabharata, for instance, right, Draupadi, she has a very close friendship with Krishna. And none of the Pandavas actually stopped that or questioned that. For instance, at the end of the day, whether if you ask me whether a married woman can have a male friend, it ultimately boils down to this idea of trust. And I think that it just goes the same way. Whether a married man can actually have a good friend who is actually a female, right? So at in an institution, there has to be that trust. And, not having that possessiveness, right? And based on that, if you are able to have that foundation in that marriage, then why not?
The question is, how big is the scripture in guiding people's lives? Because it seems like many practices from the scriptures have been morphed and combined with the societal practices, just like Raj has shared just now, and they have altered the original meaning of the scripture. So to what extent should we align to the scripture, and what should we do to continue to adapt to the scripture?
And if you feel that this is actually stifling you, like following this practice is stifling you, then I think it's better that, it's better that you don't follow it also for your own mental health. And if it's not like harming everyone, harming someone other than, it's not harming you or like anyone else outside of you.
Okay, thank you for that. So I think the main takeaway from this is that it's best that we follow the scriptures based on our own comfort level and how much it's useful for our mental health, or if it makes us feel better. So now we'll like to move on to our final question for the Q&A. We have another question with regards to some practices that have been passed on. So someone has mentioned, one of our participants have mentioned that they find it a bit worrying how practices that have been shared with us since young have not been questioned. Like, for example, when you're on your period and not allowed to go to the temple, some of these practices are not questioned and they're just passed down from generation to generation, and they make young girls feel like they are unclean. So whose role is it to question these practices?
So and during this period, right, contrary to the idea of like being unclean, actually a woman is vibrating at a very, very high level of consciousness, very high energies. So in the event that she goes to a temple, for instance, right, where it's another place where there's a lot of high energy. So religious activities such as like not just going to the temple, but even like meditation or yoga, for instance, we kind of like see it as an upward movement. So where your basically your energy level is kind of like enhanced, for instance. So what happens is that a lot of women who may not have the experience of like kind of meditating on a regular basis, for instance, for instance, like when they go to the temples, right, it could be a case where it's just too much of overwhelming energy that passes to them, and when they do not know how to control it, it might actually cause them more harm than benefit.